Welcome, everyone. I'm Andrea Ebert. I'm the mother of the Freeway Tribe. We are just a family living in this modern times, working to expose all the lies of the Matrix, all the systems that are out there. Literally every single one of them is infiltrated. No stone has been left unturned. My heart is in the medical freedom field. And today I have Dr. Christina Parks, who received her PhD in cellular and molecular biology from the University of Michigan in 1999. She did her graduate research in the field of cytokine signaling with a focus on elucidating the mechanisms by which genes are regulated. So that's when genes are switched on and off. And she'll tell us a little bit more about what that means. That cytokine word is a big word. Dr. Parks has spent many years studying the biochemistry of how vaccines and pharmaceuticals, as well as natural substances that enter our body, affects the expression of our genes, right? And the biochemical pathways that are essential to our health and well-being. Dr. Parks focuses on supporting the body in activating its natural detoxification and healing pathways through bringing signaling pathways back into balance. So this is a really big deal because what we're going to find out is that everything begins and ends at the cellular level. So I'm sorry I tripped over your introduction. You are fascinating. You're also one of the frontline doctors. You were a big voice in 2020. I'm thrilled to have you here with me today because I'm going to let you just take over in a second. But I think the most important thing right now is we're already after the fact. We spent 2 years saying, don't do it. This is happening. But I'm actually surprised to find that here we are in 2022, and we're starting to see the data. We're starting to see what's going on. We're starting to see that the new cause of death in Alberta, Canada is unknown deaths. It's the cause is unknown, is the leading
adult death syndrome.
Exactly. Sad. So this is our status right now. And what I'm finding too is there's a lot of people who actually got it, and you almost can't blame them. Either they were pressured by society into getting these things, or they really thought that it wasn't that harmful. And my heart goes out to them because I think we really can't grasp the depth of evil and the depths of control that's out there. It's almost incomprehensible. And so I think people were just really, it was easier to think it can't be that bad. They can't really be poisoning us. So what I'd really like to address in this presentation is your background to get into that, so we understand where we're coming from, and then really start talking about what we're seeing with the spike protein, and then kind of take it to what do we do now? We all, if you haven't had the vaccine yourself, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 doses, you know someone that has, someone near and dear to you has had this. And so can you just give us a little bit more about your background, cytokine, and then let's go right into it.
Yeah, I would also say, but also some practitioners are finding as much as 75% of people have post-COVID syndrome, which is characterized by hyperinflammation. And people may have subclinical symptoms. They may just not feel well. They may have brain fog. They may not notice anything. But a lot of times our inflammation can be quite high for years before we start seeing a lot of overt symptoms, like our body just tries to deal with it. Other people are having rashes, hair loss, shingles. And so whether they have overt symptoms or not, many of them would be showing inflammation markers. And so post-COVID syndrome is very real in many, many people. So even if you didn't take the experimental gene therapy, there's a reason to be concerned about your health, and to want to lower inflammation, because who knows what's coming next?
Like exactly, and what's
polio?
What do they have? What's coming out of the magic box next? It's really, it literally comes down to biological warfare, and anyone living on this planet is exposed to it to some degree or another, whether it's through shedding, whether it's through 5G. EMFs, fuel emissions, they all affect our genes in a crazy way, and they bring out that inflammatory response from our body. So with this cellular and molecular biology, you have a very unique background from, I think, most of the doctors who are very open about this, because you're talking about the very mechanisms and systems in the body. So when you talk about cytokine, what can you explain more about what that is and what you're talking about switching things on and off and all of that? Because I think that information is still, and kudos to you for doing that back in 1999, but it's still, to this day, it's still out there. It's still very uncharted territory.
Right. So it takes about probably 20 years for scientific knowledge to move into to our doctors, and 40 years for it to get from like the lab to the layperson. And that's just in general. It depends on what topic, and obviously much of this is highly censored. But so I have a double major in biochemistry and molecular biology, my undergrad degree, which is a pretty significant degree as well. And so in biochemistry, you're talking about, for you probably think about the methylation cycle, what different things are bumping into other things in our cells that are doing things, right? Molecular biology is like how your DNA and RNA things work. How would we do something like gene therapy? How would you make a vaccine? So when I studied that degree, I was learning how you would do all of this. How do you test to see if genes are turned on or turned off? What about mRNA, which some of you may remember vaguely from school? What's going on? Then you have cellular biology. What's going on with the mitochondria? So having a degree in biochemistry, cellular biology, and molecular biology would allow me to, make something like gene therapy, but also allow me to understand all the different cellular components of your cell and how doing something like that, putting in gene therapy or taking a pharmaceutical or taking a natural product might affect all of the things going on in your cell. So it both focuses on the DNA and knowing how to manipulate DNA in sort of, you might say, in an unnatural fashion, but also understanding how your body, what it does with DNA naturally, how it regulates your own gene expression, and the biochemistry of everything that's happening in the cell. Then you get to your cell membrane is like, we were taught that it protects the cell. Well, its real function is it's the most complicated, amazing interface that the world has ever known to integrate thousands and thousands of signals, probably in a second by second basis, to integrate that signal and then send signals down to the nucleus, to the DNA, and regulate the gene expression. Oh, turn this up a little, turn that down, and it integrates all of those signals to tell your genes what to do in response to your environment. Super, super powerful. So my research was in figuring out that signaling pathway from the cell membrane to the nucleus to turn on and off gene expression. So we were trying to keep the system as simple as possible to actually find out something. But as we integrate what other labs and everyone has known, which we were studying at the same time, that really gives us a picture of how these signals signal down to the DNA and turn these genes on and off. And so specifically, I worked with cytokine signaling, and I worked with growth hormone, but growth hormone is actually a cytokine, basically more based on its structure than its function. But the cytokines actually regulate all of the signaling in the immune system. So you may have heard of cytokine storm in response to COVID. And so since the signaling molecules are very similar, as I was studying it with growth hormone, we were also studying it with things like interferon gamma, which is a really key component of your body's antiviral defense system. And so I became aware. And what was interesting is, like, at that time in the mid 90s, we were still just identifying the receptors that the cytokines bound to. So we knew so little. And at that time, we were still vaccinating all our children. Like, we knew so little about the immune system, and people understood. They think that, like, somebody's got this all worked out and I don't have to worry about it. No, we are still learning. And even now we are learning so much. And again, that knowledge takes time to trickle down. Mm-hmm. And so that's where, because I understand how the immune system signals, I understand how gene therapy works, experimental gene therapy, I understand how it affects different parts of the cell. I can really take people from, what is this vaccine? What is it doing in the body? What is it intending to do? What does it look like it's doing? And what kind of havoc is that wreaking on our cellular systems? So it's a very broad range.
Let's dive right into that. And before I go there, the interesting thing, and again, that you had that degree in 1999 and you were going down that pathway, since that period in time, over the last 20, 22 years, where the science is taking us is exactly in that area, saying that the root cause of all disease, no matter what it is, at the cellular level, is the same thing. It's just inflammation in the cells and that imbalance in the body and that oxidative stress.
Right. So it's a little bit more complicated than that, because it's like, well, what's causing the inflammation? And so to me, the root of almost all dysfunction is incorrect signaling. If your body, if your cells, your DNA, if everything is not talking to itself, to each other appropriately, that's where the breakdown happens. Because remember, they're integrating all these signals and telling the body what to do. Now, that breakdown could be because of things, your dog, things that we're adding to the system, such as pharmaceuticals and other things that happen. Or it could be, a genetic predisposition that your pathway for this signaling just doesn't work optimally as it is, right? And so it's going to be more sensitive. But in general, we can almost always bring things back into better balance because, like in your eye, you're expressing eye genes. You don't have skin genes. You don't have hair genes, right?
Right.
And so in every part of your body, those cells know to to turn on the genes for that tissue. So that means that even though you have genes for all different times, eye genes and skin genes and liver genes, they are only turned on in the correct tissue at the correct time in the correct amount, which is really kind of miraculous. And so we know that even though you have all these genes, they can be turned on or they can be turned off, or they can be turned up or they can be turned down. And so that's called epigenetics. So sometimes our dysfunction isn't a result of a mutation in the gene, it's a result of, or we might have one good gene and one mutated gene. And if the good gene is functioning properly, we're okay. But if that gets turned off for some reason, or maybe it's turned on too high, or it's just dysregulated in some way, and we don't have two of them, then that can be problematic. And so it's a complicated relationship, but that field of epigenetics, whether your genes are turned on and off, can help us bring things back into balance, because it's not always a mutation of the gene. It can be a mutation, or it can be a dysfunction in how that gene is regulated.
This is so fascinating. My own personal theory is that all those vaccinations that happened 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, people will say, oh, it wasn't that bad because, people weren't getting sick. And my personal theory is that it was corrupting the genes of that generation so that the next generation would have genetic mutations.
So I would say that you kind of have it partially right. I don't think it's generally, there are exceptions. You can have insertional mutagenesis where you have DNA sort of popped in the middle of the gene, which mutates it. But in general, I would say it's not generally mutating our DNA. What it's doing is that epigenetics is actually passed on. And so the Bible might be right when it says the sins of the father are passed on to 10 generations. So let's not talk about it in terms of sin, but let's talk about it in terms of anxiety. So when they looked, what they found was in World War II, when people were under extreme amounts of stress and they were pregnant or they just had a newborn, they took a group of those newborns, this is years later, like 50, 60 years later, and versus people who were not under stress during that time. I don't know if it was in a different country or whatever. And what they found is that the children and the fetuses that had been under stress because of the occupation and just the worrying every day, that they had increased amounts of all sorts of different chronic illnesses. And what they think is that it actually changed the epigenetic. It changed their epigenetic imprinting. Wow. So your body wants to make it ready for the environment that you're coming into. So a really good example, like folic acid or folate, where a lot of people are told to supplement with that when they're pregnant, right? And I'm not telling you not to supplement, but what many people don't realize is when you do that, you're priming the child to say that this is going to be a high folate or a high folic acid environment. And so you're going to actually change their epigenetics and the enzymes that they make. So they are going to expect that high level of supplementation. So then if you have the child and they don't continue through your breast milk or feeding to receive that high level, they're going to struggle because you've primed their system to a particular environment. So if they're coming into a very nutrient deprived environment, they're going to probably have their epigenetics more tuned toward diabetes, where they're trying to store all of their energy as fat and high insulin response. And so our epigenetics are primed by our parents for our environment, and they are going to continue on that until there's enough change in that environment to then change them. So yes, it could affect our epigenetics, and it most likely did. And so the question that I'm asking is, how can we bring things a little bit more back into balance, or if there's things that aren't working for somebody? Right.
And it's such a simple question you're asking. I can't wait to dive. I do want to say, isn't it interesting that when we turn on the news, whatever news source is out there that's mainstream, isn't it interesting that it's all about stressing you out? It's all about putting
Yes.
fear into you, or it'll be like so and so died yesterday. Someone went to the beach and died, and there was snow and they died, and they went on a cruise and they died, and it makes everything seem so dire and frightening and scary. And then we're going to have food shortages, and we're going to eat crickets, and
Yeah.
and it doesn't matter if you're whatever side of the spectrum you're on, they have something to keep you very afraid.
It's when we were like right after the shutdowns, and I think we were going through the McDonald's. I know I'm a health person. We're going through the McDonald's thing. I have children, so and that's what my daughter likes to do. So I try to get the least amount and whatever. But anyway, and I was in that kind of like, oh my gosh, like there's just so much fear mongering. It's such a negative environment. And then like the person working McDonald's would be super, super nice and super, super service oriented. And there were just lots of times when I thought, you know what, like this person's working for like how much an hour, right? Like the fact that this person can be service oriented and happy and helpful, it just like renewed my faith in humanity. Like, do you know what I mean? Like if we each just went forth and like were as happy and as helpful to others as we could be, then a lot of this one would maybe disappear. But it just made me remember where real living actually is as we interact with one another. And of course, that's the only place you can interact with anybody because like everything
For a very brief
down.
period of time. Crazy. And it's sad because there's a lot of good people. They're just misdirected in their mission and what to do in life. They're just misdirected by the matrix that we live in. So let's go into a little bit of that spike protein, what we're seeing with vaccines. And I have a question for you to kind of tag on to that. And I just read a study. It's published on PubMed.gov, and they're talking about vaccines being assigned in lots, and that certain lots, 1 in every 200 lots, were deadly, and that they were lethal, and that I think they were saying 90% of the adverse reactions came out of 5%. So what are we seeing with the spike proteins? Does it mean that, if someone didn't get that lot, that special lethal lot, that they're immune, that they don't have any problems or anything to worry about? What is your take on that? What are you seeing with the injuries?
It's really hard to say because I have had like more natural health practitioners from like New York say, like, I'm actually tracking my patients and I'm not seeing injury. I'm not seeing injury. So I'm like, are those placebos? Were they not stored right? Because these are actually very labile vaccines that would degrade very quickly. So actually the lots that were probably the most detrimental are the lots that probably worked the best. They did what they were supposed to do. They actually got into your cells, hijacked them, and instructed your cells to make the spike protein. Unless they just, there's other things in the vaccines, which is, I can't really speak to that. That's speculation. Right. But it's possible that many of the vaccines actually weren't stored correctly, weren't utilized correctly, so that they degraded, and then that made them ineffective. So it's hard to say. It's hard to say. Were some of them placebos? That gets into conspiracy theory kind of speculation.
Right.
I honestly don't know. But clearly some of and it could be that some of them, the formulations of these can be actually a little bit tricky. So were those actually formulated better? Because like Patterson and Yogandra have actually looked at immune cells and found the spike protein. So clearly that genetic information got in. It did tell them to make the spike protein. It appears to be there. And these are in the vaccine injured. So, those would be some of the people from some of those hot lots. So it looks like the hot lots may be more effective at doing what they're supposed to do in terms of making the spike protein. And so there's going to have to be a lot more research to answer a lot of those questions. A lot of that is speculation at this point. But, I always tell people, like, your mental state is so important. So, like, always tell the most positive story that you can. So if you got the injections and now you're feeling like that was a bad idea, and if you're not having any symptoms whatsoever, just choose to believe you got a placebo. Like, tell your body that and let it respond, And if you are experiencing some inflammation, tell yourself, well, of course it's going to have a little bit of a negative effect, but my body can handle this, And so always tell yourself the most positive story, because the negative story is going to do stress and cortisol, and it's just going to make everything worse.
We're mind, body, and soul. It's so
Yeah.
true. And really that's how miracles happen, is that faith element that exists there, that trusting, that knowing.
Right.
I want you to talk about signaling those pathways, because I'm one of those firm believers that there's always, whatever they throw at us, God has got a solution. God's got our back. There's nothing that's beyond him. And I love the way you speak about God, and you speak about the body, and you speak about that divine innate knowing, which also just from the work you do, and how miraculous it is, and how coordinated the body is and intelligent it is. Can you talk to that a little bit?
Well, I would say, a lot of people are like, oh, I went into science and I lost my faith or whatever. I'm like, I'm not going to speak to a particular religion, but like the more complicated it is, you're just like, oh my gosh, like there's no way we were not designed and divinely created. This is just so amazing. And since I graduated, it's fun to see what new findings they've had. And it's like layer regulation upon layer regulation. It's so complex. And every time I find something new, I just start laughing. I just laugh at what God or the divine or whatever can do. I'm just like, this is amazing. It's so much beyond. And what that's telling me, my daughter has a very severe traumatic brain injury where an infection ate away half of her brain. And then she has catastrophic brain injury on that side and major brain injury on the other side. And but her spirit shines through. Somehow her spirit, her soul was able to, get this catastrophically damaged organ to function. And she's just this bright light. Yes, she's has special needs for sure, but she's just this bright light of personality and love. And I'm just like, your car doesn't fix itself. Do
No.
you know what I mean? Like it doesn't reroute and rewire. And it's just like, how does your spirit shine through that? Like, how do you still learn? How do you? And so it is true that our bodies are responsive to the messages that we send. And things like meditation help us make different biochemical models. Like, you don't need to go get CBD. Your body can make its own endocannabinoids if you're meditating or things like that, right? So we're trying to bring the body into balance. And so that said, we've talked about so many things in our society are inflammatory. And I know as an African American, I tend towards inflammation. And how can we turn that inflammation down? And I've given several lectures on that. But also, God, actually, we pretty much found out now that we have in us a whole system to prevent damage, to evoke healing, and to detox. And we found out, it was probably like 30 years ago, but it wasn't common knowledge. Of course, it takes time to build that knowledge and understand it, that this is a whole system and it has a master gene that's in charge of it called NRF2. Now it's named because it was part of the blood system, but so you don't need to know what that name stands for, but because they didn't know what it did when they identified it. But what it does is it turns on this body's master antioxidant response, which reduces inflammation, which detoxes the body, which actually mops up free radicals and prevents things from damaging you. And many of the things like the glyphosate they're spraying on our food, like having bad gut health, COVID, in fact, turn this response down or even turn it off. And if that response is not working in you, you're going to be very hyperinflammatory and very susceptible to severe disease and sepsis. And so I found out about this when I was actually looking into vaccine injury, and I was kind of looking at the inflammatory genes. And then I found this whole system, and I was like, oh my gosh, if we could only turn that on. And coincidentally, it was 3 months later, a student came to me and said, I have some health problems. Someone recommended a product. And I know you're a distributor for this product, as am I, because she said, I just want to know, is this a scam? Is this worth looking into? And as soon as I saw the name, an NRF2 activator,
Yeah.
I was like, I know exactly what it's trying to do. I know exactly what it's trying to do. And I said, now let me see, is it a pharmaceutical? No, it's 5 natural products. I already knew that turmeric was an NRF2 activator. It's ashwagandha, bacopa, milk thistle, green tea extract, things that many people in natural health are already familiar with. But they're not acting as a supplement. It's a patented blend that actually they show that it turns on this gene. It turns on this whole, not this gene, because this gene is the transcription factor. It turns and regulates all these other genes. So it's like this whole cascade that God already designed. So it's not like us trying to turn this on and turn this off. We turn on the master switch, wow, and everything else goes like it's supposed to do. Yeah, like ding, like all the lights light up, right?
You know the way.
And so
Keep going.
Yeah,
I don't
so
want to stop you.
being able to turn on this gene and basically prevent damage to detox and all of that. And I was like, yes. And it has 30 peer-reviewed publications. I was like, sign me up. I've never sold anything in my life. I've never wanted to sell anything. But this is like being the person who comes out with an iPad. Like, this is my field. And so I felt a little bit of an obligation to tell people about it because I understood the science. In fact, you may have experienced this too. One of the biggest barriers that we have is people are like, well, that really sounds too good to be true. Like,
Yes.
because it seems to fix so many things, because so
Yes.
many things have inflammation at its core cause or a toxicity at its core cause. And it's over time. It's not an opioid where you take it and you feel high in 2 minutes. It's over time. It helps to detox your body, reduce inflammation, all of these things, because it's this whole master system. And so a lot of people are like, well, that sounds too good to be true. But I knew that it was true because I knew the science behind it. And so I felt, like a moral obligation. I'm like, I'm going to tell all my friends and family members, I may as well become a distributor. I'd be stupid not to.
One thing you'll hear, and I hear from all my colleagues, they'll say you have a moral obligation. I would say about 99% were never ever in sales. And in this particular company, they say they grasp onto the concept, they understand what it is. I believe it's made for such a time as this, as are we. And we need to let people know about it. And I find the exact same barrier that people come across is because those studies you mentioned that are on PubMed.gov, they mention things like ALS, they mention things like cancer, they mention multiple sclerosis, they mention all these big things. And so people will think, well, they associate it with a drug. Like that's a powerful thing. It's so powerful. And I turn around and tell them that, no, I take this pregnant and nursing. I take it just for prevention because maybe you can tell us, like, I love when you quote Washington State University, what they say about it.
That it's the biggest breakthrough, and I can't remember the exact thing. Basically, this is a paradigm shifting breakthrough. And I knew it as soon as I saw it, because we're not just adding something to the body to try to shore up what you might not have had. We are reactivating the system God put in you. And so I believe that this is definitely, maybe possibly, the biggest breakthrough in the health field in ever.
That gives me, like, I have goosebumps, like, big time. So when I talk, what Washington State University, I'm remembering now, said potentially the most extraordinary therapeutic and preventative medical breakthrough in the history of medicine. So I tell people, take it for prevention, because so many times you get to a point where you get this diagnosis that seemingly came out of nowhere. And I know if you're listening to this talk, someone personally in your life who got a whammo out of nowhere major diagnosis. In just the past 3 years, I know 4 young people who got a massive, massive diagnosis that is almost, I don't want to say too late, because I don't think anything is too late. But at that point, I think then you have so many things and ideas thrown at you for what you can do as a solution that it's
right. Yeah.
mind-boggling.
Very hard.
So you want to get it in the preventative point.
Well, and that's the thing. We're accumulating toxins. I'm sure I probably have some mutation where, because I started on our products and I had to go really slow because I started detoxing. At first I was fine, and then I started detoxing. And the thing is, it's going to turn on those detox genes. And if you don't detox well, you've built up decades worth of toxins in your body. And interestingly enough, like this year, I lost like 30 pounds without even trying. And I honestly think it's because I finally detoxed so much out of my body, out of that fat, I was able to lose the fat because it didn't have these toxins. And so I think that, if you are highly toxic, that would be the one thing I would be careful about. So if you aren't all natural and all of those, so I would be on it 6 months to a year before I got pregnant, because you don't want to be detoxing when you have a 3-week-old fetus in you, right? You don't want to be, because you will send those toxins into the fetus. But in general, especially, so you want to detox beforehand. So, but some people don't have problems detoxing. So when they add our products, they notice the reduction in inflammation. They notice that it's just protecting them. So because, remember, we have so many more chemicals in our environment than we've ever had before. We've got Wi-Fi. We've got stuff that they're spraying on their food. I mean, it's everywhere. And so I would say almost, to a person, if somebody seems healthy, it's like the illusion of health. Because, like, how can you live in this toxic milieu and be healthy unless you're on something that is constantly helping your body to heal and detox and protect yourself?
Do you know, I have a question for you because I know you've been a voice in the forefront in this whole escapade of what we've been going through, and just a voice of reason for the people, and people have really latched onto you, as well as other frontline doctors. And I'm sure, like you, have looked at a lot of the protocols that have been coming out, because there are some doctors, and I love them, and Dr. Artis, I'm a huge fan, is just an example that comes to mind. But they've come out with these protocols, and they're of faith, and so they believe we can get past it. But what I'm finding is their protocols are, when you know about the systems in the body, when you know that we can switch them on through cell signaling and activate our genes and turn on the master switch, you look at I look at every other protocol and I think it's so inferior. For example, we know that when we activate the NRF2 pathway, we're going to naturally increase our glutathione by 300%, and that's in everybody. So I'm seeing them supplement it. Some are recommending, for example, selenium, to take selenium to boost up glutathione, or actually supplement with glutathione. These are actual protocols that have been put out there. And then I've seen like high doses of vitamin C, and that would be to fight the antioxidants, right? To methylate. And I've seen, gosh, what else? What is your take on what you've seen? And
well,
have you heard
again, I agree that a lot of it is trying it. They don't know about activation, so they're trying to give vitamin C to reduce inflammation. But unfortunately, vitamin C can also activate your immune cells. So if you have post-COVID syndrome or a vaccine injury, you may have mast cell activation, and vitamin C in some people can make it worse. So many people, if they're so dysregulated, they can be sensitive to anything, especially if their gut is screwed up. So yeah, and what I would say is yes, activating the body's master system is always generally going to be preferable. There are some things that, especially if you're really dysregulated or you're just getting into it because you're just starting our product, right? And you may need more bolsters. You may need to take that vitamin C for a while our product starts to detox, starts to do those things. But I just lost my train of thought. Some things that I think are helpful, and some of our products have these in there, but it's definitely, you need vitamin D to make sure you are really turning down inflammation. And a lot of your immune response is really responsive to vitamin D, and turning off the immune response is responsive to the vitamin D. So you need vitamin K2 with that. So I take like a cod liver oil with high vitamin butter. You get K2 from butter. And you need magnesium to activate vitamin D. So vitamin D, K2, and magnesium, super important. I would still supplement with those. And zinc also. We do have some products in our line. I love our Daily Wellness because it's getting a lot of that in there, and that has zinc in it as well. A lot of these inflammatory processes and our immune response is really dependent on zinc, or turning off inflammation and activating the immune response, really dependent on zinc. We don't want to ever overdo it with zinc, like less than 35 milligrams a day. But if you are having problems, you need to make sure your zinc's sufficient. That's key. The other one that is, and these are ones that I'm saying that I think are good ideas, beyond just activating the body, or I don't say just because whatever, but the other one is the antihistamines. Many people are actually having an allergic response to the spike protein. There's a lot going on, and for some people, their body, if they had the vaccine, their body is chronically making the spike protein. So even if they break it down, it might still be making it. Like, we're not really sure. They found spike protein like 12 months, 18 months out in some of these people. And so if their body's having an immune allergic type response to it, many people have found some degree of help with taking an antihistamine. Now, again, that's a short-term stopgap. Like, in some of these different therapeutics are short-term stopgaps to prevent damage or to make your life more livable, because you don't want things to spiral out of control, right?
Right.
But like in the long term, we have products I'd rather have people on our Daily Wellness. So start on an antihistamine and see if eventually you can wean off and use something that reduces histamine, like our product, which is Daily Wellness, which is an excellent product. So,
I love that. And it was actually, I saw an ad from Dr. Pompa, and I have friends who have worked with Dr. Pompa and done his protocols and stuff. And it's interesting because he was actually talking about the importance of D and zinc in his talk. But what he was saying was, look, don't think you can just throw zinc and throw this and throw some D and throw some this and think that you have like the perfect cocktail, because it's almost upsetting what he goes on to say afterwards, because it's real, and it gets complicated because he'll be like, if you do too much of this, it will throw off this. If you do too little of this, it will throw this. You know, and he's talking about it, and you understand that what we're doing here is biohacking with nutrigenomics. So can you explain the difference of nutrigenomics and what our biohacking company is doing, and why it's kind of at the forefront, and why they would mix like a specific combination of zinc and D, and why that would be, why they would do that?
So there's kind of two parts to that question. And it depends on, so we have our activators, our NRF2. So that's activating your body. So one of the things is you have to ask, how does our body know what to absorb? And why aren't we absorbing stuff out of food like we would normally do? Right? Like you should be able to get everything you need from food, but your gut is extremely complex. And this is where the microbiome is super important. We have amazing products for that, of which Daily Wellness is one. And so, one, if we sort of turn on our NRF2, what that's going to do is it's actually going to turn our genes back in a positive direction to doing what they should do. And that may help to heal our gut and to reabsorb things. However, healing the gut is really, really complicated. And a lot of times that's the step that a lot of people need to do. It's sort of a self-limiting step, because your gut is what tells your body what to absorb. So when it's not working right, you're in a mess of trouble. So even if you're on the NRF2, if you have gut problems, it takes longer to heal. Like you don't have gut problems, our NRF2 like will get your body back in shape in a much shorter period of time. You have serious gut problems, it takes longer, and a lot of times it does eventually work, but because restoring the microbiome is extremely complex. So to deal with this issue of our gut being leaky, of stuff leaking through the gut into the blood and causing inflammation, of having, you don't have the right bacteria, maybe you're taking a probiotic, maybe you're taking our probiotic, but it takes time to reestablish that gut microbiome. So what our company did is they found a company that made a postbiotic, which is a fermented product that has all the signaling molecules that your gut was supposed to make, that tell it what to absorb and when to absorb and how to close so that you're not leaking through into your bloodstream. And so I'm absolutely agree with Dr. Pompa that like dumping a whole bunch of stuff in is you're taking all your biochemical pathways and pushing them one way and pushing them another way and like expecting it to come back into homeostasis. No, we want to use small amounts in this milieu where we have all of these signaling molecules. These signaling molecules that your gut is supposed to produce anyway. And that's what our Daily Wellness has. And so when I found that out, I wasn't going to get it because I'm like, I have zinc, I have D, I have this, I have that. And then they're like, they have a postbiotic, they have these gut signaling molecules. I'm like, and it was naturally made. It's from fermented yeast. It doesn't have the yeast in there. So we know that they're making it in biologically relevant amounts to what it needs to do. And sort of some human's going to guess how much of some little micronutrient you need or some sort of neurotransmitter you need. We don't know. These biological systems that are making this already know, because they're much more complex, much more, we'll just say like sort of dynamically wise in a God-given way. Yes. To make what is needed. So we're putting all of that in there. And what it does is it restores the gut signaling that you should have while you're working on restoring your microbiome. And that tells your body more what to absorb, what not to absorb, close leaky gut, all of those things. And so it's a much more natural approach. Yeah. So and there's just no way that we could guess, like, we'll put it in this much, we put it in, which is what we're doing with supplementation a lot of the time. And even my vitamin D, I take a cod liver oil because I believe that natural product is going to be more biologically relevant, because that's how we're supposed to get those type of things, right? And it's a fermented, cod liver oil mixed with high vitamin butter. So that's why if you have COVID and all that's on the shelf is like vitamin D gummies or like, yep, droplets or something, take what you need, like, get what you need. But over the long term, you want something that's more biologically relevant. So I tend to either go to more food-driven products or things like fermentation products. And even those, like, I'm really sensitive to fermented products, even though I make my own pickles and everything like that, because I'm sensitive to mold. But this product actually reduces histamine. So people who are sensitive to fermented products should not have any problem with this product. because it's not like a fermented pickle or whatever. It's a drink mix. And, I haven't had any problems. It's actually helped me with a ton of histamine issues.
That's amazing. That fermented, you'll have to give me the name for that fermented fish oil with the butter, because I did order.
I'll text that to you.
Yes, because
I'll tell, it's totally up to you. I don't sell it. It's Radiant Life.
I've heard about that for the teeth, like restoring so much of what we do in society is like so counterintuitive to what the body can actually do. I think
I have to tell you my story for that. So I was like 40 years old and my teeth felt loose and it was freaking me out. I don't have any cavities. I have beautiful teeth. And I asked the dentist, he said, there's nothing you can do about it. Yep. Well, I had been also suffering from seasonal affective disorder forever. I got into this bright light. I had tried everything I can think of. I'm like, I'm just depressed. I'm going to go to bed in November, wake me up in March and, whatever. Yeah. And I was like, am I really still dealing with this? And then I started this particular cod liver oil. Within 2 weeks, my seasonal affective disorder, my depression or whatever, went away, never came back. And my teeth like weren't loose anymore. They strengthened into their sockets, So whenever the doctor tells you like, oh, you can't heal from that, or like that's, there's nothing you can do. Your body is amazing.
Do you know what I love about understanding these systems? And I heard a doctor say beautifully, he said, we don't work with symptoms, we work with the systems in the body. And I love that line. And I'll quote that all the time. These amazing systems. And I love, I would have heard also from, other doctors out there who have been so helpful and informative. And they really address what the root cause is. It's just like what you said, they don't know what they don't know. And I think that the fact that I know about NRF2 is it's a grace and it's a gift. And I don't know how I came to this knowledge or how I came to it, but I'm just so grateful for it. And I feel like it's given me a whole paradigm shift in my life, and I don't worry about things anymore. No, I just activate these pathways.
The same way. And I feel the same way. I feel like it's a gift. And when I found out about it, because I knew about the gene, I was like, how did I not know about this? Like, I'm a cellular and molecular biologist. How have I not heard about this? And wow. And that's because our company is still growing. And that's why, like, they put it on GNC shelves at the beginning, like, because anyone knows what an NRF2 activator is. Nobody bought it.
They still don't know.
People who were told by someone who was taking it about it. It's not vitamin C. It's not vitamin D. So people didn't know. And that's why we went to a more, a different marketing system where people are telling one another about it, because it's complicated and you have to explain it.
Yeah. I love that. And one of the pathways I'd love for you to talk about just a little bit too, and what you think, if you would recommend it as well, if someone has had the jab or the vaccine. Mm-hmm. It's Dr. Artis will also talk about how it's oxidative stress and mitochondrial dysfunction. He just kind of lays it out there, and I'm sitting there going, oh my gosh, does he not know? Like, does he know about this?
Right. So when this came out, so we didn't know what COVID was going to do. And then we certainly didn't know what the vaccines were going to do. And then we found out it was the spike protein that's the problem, both in COVID and of course in the vaccines. And so I had gotten into this company, and then we're finding out, okay, well, COVID and the spike protein causes huge inflammation. Oh, we have a product that reduces inflammation by 40% by reducing oxidative stress. Okay, then it causes enormous amounts of mitochondrial damage. I have fibromyalgia. I've had, metabolic syndrome. Basically, I know I've had mitochondrial dysfunction my whole life. And my muscles were so tight, like ropes, like someone had twisted them. And what it is your muscles actually need energy to relax. And if your mitochondria, which produce energy, aren't working, you have a problem. So when I started taking our NRF1 activator, which activates your mitochondria, what it does is it actually rebuilds them. It cycles them. It puts in new proteins. It's makes mitochondrial biogenesis. Will make all new ones. And so, since mitochondrial dysfunction is at the core of many things like autism, for me, fibromyalgia, life-changing for me. Life-changing. Wow. These two products, our NRF2 and our NRF1 activator. I'll turn around and drive 50 miles home to go get them. I'm like, I'm not going anywhere without my products. Okay, I'm just not doing it. So, and so we have a disease that causes huge inflammation, huge mitochondrial damage, and it's a misfolded protein that aggregates in cells and can be problematic. And our third activator, our NAD activator, actually helps the body break down misfolded proteins. So it just got to the point where it's like, God,
Yes.
Yeah. It's just like, this is too good to be true. Like, I'm not making this up. Those are our three primary activators. And so I think what we have, again, was it a coincidence that I found out about this 2 months, or actually it was in the middle, right during the lockdowns, right when COVID had happened. Like, I talked to my student maybe a week before the lockdown or something. So was it a coincidence that happened?
There are no coincidences.
Be true. Yeah, I don't think so. And so again, when I found out about it, and the science was already there. There are thousands and thousands of papers on NRF2, the actual gene and what it does. And so we are the only ones who really have an NRF2 activator. And one of the things I love is that we've had people on this product for 6-10 years. And so the company's been around a lot, and it's just taking off. But, I like, if you're like me, you don't really want to like tell people about a brand new product. It's like, maybe, I don't know, like, do you know what I mean? About especially something that's so as different as this. But we have had people on this product for decades, for years. Like my lead distributor on my team has been taking it for 6 years. Wow. And so we know it works. We know it's safe, and of course, someone might have a bad reaction to anything, especially if you have like mast cell activation. Yeah. You might have a hyperhistamine response. But, like I've known 1 or 2 people who had that, and they're like, I react to everything, and because they have gut problems or whatever. So there's a bigger issue there. But in general, we've got something that was really made for such a time as this. I would say, like if someone's vaccine injured, if they're quite ill, I would make sure you are on those antihistamines, that you do take what you need to stabilize the system, and go really, really slow with our products, because your body's kind of dysregulated. And if you were predisposed to vaccine injury, you could be quite toxic. So when you start taking our product, it can pull those toxins out of your tissue into your blood. That can be inflammatory, might cause cold sores, might cause brain fog, might cause you to feel bad. And so you need to go, if that's you start taking it, you take 1 pill and you're doing great, like, you just keep going until or you may feel great for a while, and then you're like, okay, now I'm feeling more tired. Sometimes our bodies go through different stages of detoxification. And so, and that generally means that just means you need to cut back for a little bit, cut back to half a pill or a pill every other day, to allow your body to slowly detoxify. But that said, one of the reasons I love our NRF2 product is because I know people that have children like that are autistic that were like chelating, and they were trying these therapies that I just wasn't sure. It's like, is that coming out of the body? You're using TRS, it has aluminum in it. Is your body getting rid of that? Like, or is it staying in there? Like, what's happening? And until we actually have the scientific research to show exactly what's happening, of course, nobody wants to do that science because it's not a pharmaceutical.
Yeah.
There's questions, and they're legitimate questions now. And I know some parents, like, my kid's banging their head against the wall, like, and I'm like, I get it. Like, do what you need to do, make a decision as informed as you can. But one of the reasons I love our products is because it's activating your body's own natural detox. And so it's going to be like a slower detox than maybe some of these other products, but it doesn't have a lot of the potential consequences that you're not sure of, because it's activating your body's own natural system. The only thing is, if you're just activating it a little too much, or you're detoxing, you may just need to go slow, because you don't want to, because that's stressful for the body to detox.
I love it. And I have 7 children, and I've taken this pregnant and nursing throughout with the last 2 pregnancies. I'm telling you, the umbilical cord, and I've heard this throughout, so babies today are born with 287 toxins on average inside of their umbilical cord, because of the world they're living in. When a pregnancy is NRF2 activated, what they've seen is like the most pristine, perfect umbilical cord, like these healthy APGAR score baby, like perfect babies with these perfect scores.
Encouraging. So, but again, you want to start before, like a few months before you conceive, ideally, because your body is going to be detoxing for a little bit.
Exactly. And then also, what I didn't realize until recently is that the babies get all their mitochondria from the mother. And so I do both of them throughout the pregnancy. So I take the mitochondria so I can give that to the baby and give it to them in all that wholeness. So I love that. And then, talking about babies and birthing and nature and how divine the body is, when people don't understand the NRF2 pathway, I find that a good way to explain it to them is breast milk. So I'm like, if a baby is breastfeeding, they're a little biohacker. The baby is a baby biohacker, because even if the most clever scientists, even if their most natural minded scientists came up with like the best formula, with, and they put in these right amounts of maybe vitamins and minerals, and maybe they source this really great goat milk, and they made like the most perfect milk. It wouldn't even compare to what the breast milk does. And when they study the breast milk, they find out like how the white blood cells are in there, and how, how it's constantly morphing to that child's needs. So it's
Right.
not just one brand of milk. The milk you give to the 2-month-old is different, to the 6-month-old is different, to the baby who has.
Well, and on a daily basis, you kiss that child, you pick up on a particular pathogen, a bacteria, virus. Your body makes antibodies and different antiviral or antibacterial compounds, puts it in the breast milk instantly, right?
Done.
It's like custom every day, every hour.
That's what I'm like, okay, so your baby's got breast milk, you need NRF2.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
That is our like, okay, we need this. Okay, I need this, or we're going to detox this. So I love that. I want to be cognitive of time. We're getting close to the hour, and I just appreciate that you took your time for this interview. I have a friend who said, if you are vaccine injured, or there's two people that need NRF2. One is those who've been vaccinated, and the other group is those who have not been. So I'm sure
I'm pretty much of the same mind. Like everybody needs it. Like we all live in a toxic world, so you definitely need it. And you're gonna, actually the healthier you are, the better you're gonna tolerate it. But again, what you're doing is you're preventing anything from the future. Like when we first started, my husband was like, I've had acid reflux in my esophagus for my whole life. He's like, I'm going to take 2. And I was on a little bit of a budget back then because I wasn't making much money. I just started. And I said, well, and then I was like, why would you tell him not to? Take 1 in the morning, take 1 at night. You might have esophageal cancer forming. And if I can help prevent that from getting worse or help heal it or whatever, I'm like, go ahead, take what you want. Like, go, and he did for a while. But so yeah, it can prevent whatever might be coming up, because a lot of these toxins, a lot of different things are will accumulate over time and cause problems over time. And then, of course, the people who really need it are those who are, injured or dysfunctional or whatever, to try to bring their body back into homeostasis.
I love it. I want to thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you so much. I'll be in touch with you, and send me that information. I'll put it in the comments. And then I don't know if you have time right now, but do you want to share a little bit about your website, or do you need to jump into another call?
Sure. Well, yeah, no, that's fine. And I need to in the next day or two we have a give, send, go. So many of you may not know, the whole reason I got into this is I was seeing the health of our children decline, whether it's the glyphosate or the vaccines, and so many chronic conditions like PANDAS and POTS. And I've done a deep dive into so many things, because until we understand what's wrong, we can't really fix it. And so my exposure to knowing about NRF2 is because of that research I did, and then someone brought the product to me. But at the same time, the core causes of many of the dysfunctions are very complex. And so I'm starting a Vaccine Injury Treatment Alliance. And this isn't really just about vaccine injury, because like a lot of the predisposing factors, gut health, glyphosate exposure, right? And so we are specifically looking at vaccine injury, but a lot of the information that we're going to share can be applied to many different dysfunctional conditions. And so what we're going to do is really, we're bringing a bunch of practitioners and scientists and doctors together, and really saying, what have you seen? What have you found? What's working? What diagnostics are working? And I just feel like we need all hands on deck. We can't all just be in our own little place doing our own little thing. The damage that's been done, especially with the COVID vaccines, is too great. And our children, and of course, many of us have wanted to do this before, but I don't think there really was the will to do it, to get us all together and say, hey, we've got to address this dysfunctional health in our children. We've got to address these vaccine injuries, whether it's COVID or otherwise. And so we're kind of doing it all hands on deck. And we're going to launch a webpage where I was just today working with the designer, and I'm so excited because I'm like, oh, like when someone has design, like I'm a scientist, I would have just written the information down, and you all would have been like, no,
you made it so pretty.
But they would have read it anyway, because autism moms are like, that have vaccine injured kids will do anything to get the information right. And then she made it in this wonderful, friendly form. But we're going to have for a membership fee, which is going to go back into like giving money to do conferences and to fund the website and everything else. But we're going to have some information that's free, mostly on the childhood schedule, because we want to get that information out. But once you have membership, you'll have access to like weekly, or maybe even more, we'll see how it goes, informational presentations by doctors. Like myself, I could give a bunch of them just myself on all
Yeah.
kinds of different stuff, from gut health to vitamin D to whatever. But we're going to have, like, if someone does hyperbaric, they're going to come and give a presentation on hyperbaric. How can it help? What do you need to know? And we're also going to have, like, what diagnostics. So we're going to continue to work with these practitioners and get the information that they're giving us up onto the website, so you can access that website and find that information. And it's going to be a continual process, because as we get them together, we're hoping some of these practitioners will work with their specific patients and actually kind of do like a clinical trial. And maybe some of them will actually do a real clinical trial and publish it. But even in the interim, if I know someone is trying something and they're like, well, I'm going to use this particular CBD product on these 20 patients and see what the benefits and and so that we can actually give people like more standardized information, instead of like, well, I tried this on my kid and it worked. And you're like, yeah, do they have the same mechanism of injury? Like, are they, there's so many different variables. So to try to parse a lot of this information, and then we're going to put that up. So we're going to have access to presentations, probably given weekly or more eventually. And then also we'll have the recordings of the past presentations. But what you're also doing by funding our website, which we will continue to update with new information as we gain it, and just information in general, because as you know, there's so much out there, is the practitioners. We're having a page for the practitioners to continue to interact with each other and in real time to work with each other, to teach each other about each other's specialty. Like, one person specializes in this, another person specializes in gut health. And then I hope to take that information to sort of newly minted practitioners. So there's a lot of healthcare workers that have sort of come out of the system because of this,
Yes.
because of COVID. And they're like, I want to help, but I don't even know where to begin. And so what does an integrated practice look like? And I'm sure you've heard it, where people like, I need a doctor for this, and just nobody even knows like where to go with this. And there's only 2 doctors that are treating vaccine injury that are in, and they're full up with patients, right? So we've got to start educating other doctors. And again, we don't have to go and say this is vaccine injury. We could say these are diagnostics and treatments for POTS, for pandas, for all of these other dysfunctional conditions, for autoimmunity. And here's what we found. And so this is really a huge effort, because what it is a paradigm shift in how we're approaching things. Again, getting to root causes and healing the body from those root causes, and then teaching others to do it. And so in supporting our alliance, you're supporting getting information to parents, to people, but you're also supporting all of us practitioners who work in natural health that have just sort of been scraping by on our own to sort of all come together and say, we want to do things differently, and we want to do it at a big level. We want to have, more conferences where we're together, not because a lot of times you go to Autism One, you have one practitioner telling everyone about one thing. I want to bring all the practitioners together and let's hash it out.
Right.
And so that's what it is. I'll make sure you get that link to VITA, the Vaccine Injury Treatment Alliance. We have a Give, Send, Go. And so the money that goes to the Give, Send, Go will go to the website. And the website is going to be continually updated. So we'll have to continually pay for those. And we want to get this, like, somebody was sending me text blasts. I'm like, that is such a great way to reach people in this highly censored environment. So everything you give is going to be used for, getting these words out, and to have in-person conferences with our practitioners and doctors. And so, however much money you raise, you can be assured that it's going to go to a good cause.
I love it. What an exciting time to be alive. I don't fear these times at all. I'm like, this is exciting. I think you wrapped it up. Paradigm shift is happening. And you're a major factor in that. So I thank you so much for that. I thank you for your time. I'll make sure your links get below. And I just wish you all the best. I know you're traveling this week, so safe travels. And thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. It was a fun interview.
Thank you. God bless. Thank you so much for watching this presentation. I hope you're encouraged. If you're ready to start biohacking your body, please get with the distributor who invited you to watch this presentation. They'll help you get started. I've got my link below. I'm also putting a link below to Dr. Christina Parks, to her Vaccine Injury Treatment Alliance. Please consider donating. Please also consider joining our biohacker movement on the distributor side. We need your help in getting this information out there to the world. It's very important information, and our numbers are so small. So also please get with the person who invited you to this presentation, and they'll introduce you to all the systems we have in place to help you get started. Thank you so much. Take care.